This episode is brought to you by Ferrero. Soccer's biggest stage is approaching, and Ferrero is making it easy to go all in. Pick any two Ferrero brands from Kinder Bueno to Ferrero Rocher, and you could win the $1 million grand prize, plus an exciting range of daily and weekly prizes. Don't miss your shot. Official rules apply. Learn more at goallinandwin.com.
Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to Haway the podcast. And not since Bobby Mikhailov played in between the sticks for Reading and Roker Park back in September 1995 has hair being talked about so much in relation to a Sunday fixture as it was, I'd say Andrew laughing, as it was after the final whistle at Molyneux. But we move on and we sent the call out to you lovely listeners for questions, and you've once again responded because you've sent us them by the bucket load. So to fit them all in, we better get cracking because I have a couple of gentlemen waiting in the wings, itching to provide answers, although I give our usual warning that they might not necessarily be the right answers. Because first up, we have Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, mate. I can tell it's going to be a good episode when we're starting with Bobby Mikhailov. That's brilliant.
Well, am I right? I mean, I was racking my brains. Can you remember a time we've talked about hair so much since 1995?
Oh, God.
And do you want to tell the listeners why 1995 that game was significant on that front?
Bobby Mikhailov was bless him. He was concerned about his appearance, wasn't he? That's all. That's all I'll say. I remember when Michael Gray turned up for pre-season. He dyed his hair bleach blonde. That caused a bit of a stir. But yeah, I think you're right with Mikhailov. That was the last time hairstyles were such. I can't even believe we're having this conversation, man. It's just madness.
Yes. Well, we'll come back onto it because also joining us, who I'm sure wants to have his say, is Anne Watterson. Hello, mate.
Yeah. I can actually remember Bobby Mikhailov as well. So there we go. Bless him. That was a good game. Was that 2-2 that game?
It
got
was.
promoted. It was, wasn't it? Yeah. Really good.
If I remember rightly, David Kelly's debut, or was it not?
Could be.
Or he scored in it. No, he scored in it. I think it was his first goal for the club, I think, rather than his debut.
It was like a diving header, wasn't it? But he went down in stages.
Yeah.
You're on the right lines. It was his first goal. Are we doing a Q&A or are we doing an on this week? This is brilliant. This is right up my street.
Well, we should do one of those. Roker Rewind. We should do hairstyles back down the edges as Sunderland players. But I remember Lionel Perez as well. I remember him cutting his locks. Yeah, he had long hair, and then he came back with his bleach blonde in the summer for that first season at Stadium. But anyway, and because we were on the preview before leading up to the Wolves game, I think we all called it out that Sunderland would win. I'll let you have your say on what happened, mate.
Well, we would have done. We would have won really, really comfortably and won for the referee. I mean, it's like, like I say, I thought we were playing okay. I thought up until the goal. And up after the goal, I thought we were playing okay. I thought we were doing a good job of thought we nullified them first 10 minutes because they had a little goal in there. I thought we were fine. Obviously, Nordy putting us in front was excellent. Really nice goal, like from good to see a score from a corner for once, which was nice. And I thought we were in complete control of the game. And then, I've even just watching it all back, thinking, when's the incident? And you don't spot it for a little while, do you? It took me probably second or third goal watching it live that I go, oh, that's it. And for me, this is why that VAR is ruining the game of football, because it's meant to be a clear and obvious error, that the referees missed. Not one Wolves player bar Tolu was appealing for a free kick. Free kick wasn't even given, and then the worst thing is I can understand if Dan Ballard's made a deliberate attempt to pull him and pull him by the hair, I can understand that being given as a foul, and if it's serious foul play, then that's what it is. But you can't tell me that when you watch that time and time again, Dan Ballard's eyes are on the ball, like, all the way. They're not on the player. So how is it Dan Ballard's fault that lad's got long hair? Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't understand what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to make them do. They do it in the women's game. You can't have to tie your hair up, because all the women, they tie their hairs up or have them braided. So if they pull the hair, it is a deliberate attempt to pull their hair. It's a deliberate attempt to stop them from getting through. So just do that. Either do that or make them all get grade 4s, and then it's over and done with, isn't it? Because it's just stupid. It's just a stupid rule. We've seen I seen some tackles yesterday in the City Everton game. I think Michael King got away with one where, he nearly broke Jeremy Dockler's ankle and only got a yellow card. It's like, how was that any different? You know what I mean? How can he stay on the pitch and Dan Ballard misses the rest of the season now for getting a bit of hair stuck in his hand? It's mad. And like I say, I mean, I can't agree with anyone who says that that's deliberate. And that's what, I totally get if that's the rules, and I get that with what Red just said. I get that with what everyone's saying online. If that's the rules, then that's the rules. But there's like a nuance in it. Like, there's got to be nuance. It can't just be that someone gets caught up with it in a 50-50, in a good scrap, which what it was. Like, he grabs hair or whatever like that, and it ends up in a red card. Otherwise, because that's all big strikers with long hair, or big players with long hair, are going to try and do. It's just going to give them an advantage because they've got long hair. It's stupid. It really is. It's absolutely stupid.
Yeah. Just to kind of push the point on the women's game, actually, just very quickly, because is that thing then, because if they've got the advice to put their hair up, does that mean that if there's a clearly accidental pull in a tussle, because they might still have long hair, it's just up, so it might still get caught? So is there a bit of nuance in the women's game where clearly they say, look, that's an accident?
Yeah. So I've seen, again, it depends on the referee, but I've seen, obviously, I think Chelsea were playing in the Champions League a few weeks ago, and one of their players deliberately had the hair pulled, and there was nothing. But I've also seen as well, I went to watch the Lasses a couple of years ago, and played down at Reading, and one of our Lasses literally went to try and catch her up, pulled her by, like, I think she had like her hair in like a braid, so she had 2 braids like down here, pulled one of the braids, sent off. I was like, if that's the rules, I didn't know it was a rule at the time. I was like, if that's the rules, that's because she's deliberately done it. So, and I get that. I totally get, like, stuff like that. But you watch, was it the FA Cup semi-final a couple of weeks ago, and Mark Cucurella gets brought down off Calvert-Lewin, I want to say, who deliberately pulled at his hair and wasn't even looked at. So how they can look at that, how the FA can look at that, how someone in Stockley Park can look at that and go, that's deliberate, that's a red. And like I say, I think it's ruining the game of football. Like, it really, really is. There's some of the decisions that we've had even in the last few weeks has been, like, baffling. Like, Nodi Mukiele's goal against Forest, it probably wouldn't have mattered for now. But what, sorry, Dan Ballard's goal, but Nodi Mukiele, who can't stop the momentum, you can't, like, he couldn't have chopped his legs off, you know what I mean? He couldn't have done anything else. And that gets disallowed. And you look at other games where you think, well, it's exactly the same things happening. Like, where's the consistency? And I think what they're going to have to do is literally have a good think about what they want to do this year. Because even the Wolves fans were singing, "Is this football anymore?" At Dan Ballard getting sent off, that's how much of a shit decision it was. And like I say, I'm seeing people online they're giving Ballard like pelters for it, and you're like, well, what's he meant to do? You know what I mean? Like, what's he supposed to do in that situation? It's crazy, mate. Honestly, it really isn't. And like I say, I mean, I'm like, again, from an era where, these blood and thunder tackles, like back at Roker Park with Kevin Ball getting stuck in and all that stuff. And now you're seeing that. You're seeing people getting red cards for that. It's absolutely baffling, mate, really. And I'm really worried about what's next. You know what I mean? What is going to be next? If you blow on someone, you're going to get sent off. I might as well just make a non-contact sport, Chris, to be totally honest with you, and just get it done with.
Yeah, well, you were talking about the Man City Everton game, and actually you talked about the contact that Michele made in that Ballard goal against Forest. And I saw Bernardo Silva basically chuck someone over in the box and wrestle someone, and VAR just let that go. because they thought, oh, we'll kind of use common sense here and let the game go on. But we don't seem to be on the end of many common sense decisions. And look, I played to a crap standard. I played nowhere near a decent standard, but I know I was a centre half and I was absolutely all over the centre forward. I'd be pushing them, pulling them, grabbing them anywhere I could to get an advantage. And you saw Bollard pushing the striker. He wasn't pulling his hair to get an advantage to distract him or to pull him away from the ball or anything like that. When he went round the other side, he pushed him over. He used his fist to have that distance. I mean, Andrew, will bring you in on obviously the Wolves game in general, and obviously I'm sure you want to have your say on that incident. But I'll just bring in a question while I'm at it. The first one, because LD asks at the same time as well as commenting on that Wolves game. He says, "Can we take a moment to reflect on how good an achievement mathematical safety is? Seems to have been blown over totally." So I'll let you kind of bring that question in on talking about that point at Wolves.
It's a fair point from LD there, because there has been a lot of talk about has the side dropped off and why is the second half of the season not brought as many good results as the first half. So it would be a shame if we forgot that we are comfortably safe and we've done it with weeks to spare. I can't think of many recent Premier League seasons where we've got it done so soon. We've confirmed mathematically that we'll be in the division the next season. So yeah, it's a lovely achievement. I don't think the players will see it as such a big achievement, because we've said all season, haven't we, that they look to be aiming higher. But compare where we are now to how a lot of fans predicted us to be, it's superb. And I think a lot of people, had they looked at the fixtures at the start of the season and said, Sunderland will go away to Wolves and nick a point whilst down to 10 men for so long, most people think, oh, I bet that's a really important point in keeping us up. And yet the response is actually, oh, it's a bit of a shame, because had it been 11v11, we would have won comfortably. So yeah, it's I'm pleased that's being brought up. It is definitely a moment to just look back on and say well done to those involved. The game itself and the Ballard incident, like you said, Chris, when you played football, it was almost expected. It's two big units going up against each other. There's going to be a little bit of grapple, and that's all it was in my eyes. The week prior, or it might have been a fortnight ago, you had City playing Arsenal, and everybody was saying, oh, wasn't it brilliant seeing Haaland, and the lad's name escapes me.
Gabriel.
Sorry?
Gabriel.
Gabriel, aye.
Yeah.
Wasn't it good to see two old-fashioned players going at it, hammer and tongs, and giving each other plenty of stick? So how have we gone from that one weekend to the next weekend, where just such a nominal thing has been pulled up? And fair play to the Wolves fans, you pointed it out. Even they, once the decision was made, were chanting against VAR and complaining about the way the game went, even though it benefited them. I actually was at the game. I got a ticket in the home end and snuck in. I went in disguise. I should have gone dressed as Bobby Mikhailov just to throw people off the scent.
Come on then. How's your Brummie accent?
Well, not good, but where I ended up, and this is maybe a conversation for another day, there was the guy to my right was a Wolves fan, and then pretty much everybody else around me were tourists and youth teams and all sorts. We've touched on that recently anyway. I mean,
we've got a question about that, so we'll probably come back on them.
I might touch a bit more on that then. But yeah, the Wolves fans, they were unhappy about the decision because they don't like the way the game's going. In the ground, you didn't even know what was being checked because it didn't say on the screens. Mm-hmm. It just said possible violent conduct or whatever. It didn't even say Sunderland or Wolves or whatever. So it was confusing. And the reason people were confused was there'd been nothing obvious that had happened on the pitch. You know, if there'd been a nasty tackle or whatever, it's obvious that's what's being looked at. This just seemed like the type of incident that happens hundreds of times a weekend in football. I really think Sunderland were shafted, because had it been 11v11, we would have won that game clearly. Even at 10v11, after he made the 3 subs, we were the better team, I thought. So yeah, really frustrated about the decision. Really frustrated that we couldn't have kept Wolves out longer after half-time, because their fans were not in a good mood, and had we held them out longer, the mood would have turned sour. But overall, I can't be too annoyed with the team. That they worked hard, they dealt with the red card as best they can. And like LD says, we're safe, man. We're looking forward to the next season. We are a team that are progressing well and going in the right direction.
Yeah, well, talk of being in the right direction, Andrew, because we'll move on to the next one, and I'll put this one to Ant, because I've got a couple along these lines, actually. I'll do the first one from Joel Lewins, because he sent in, the second half of the season was not as good as the first half. Do you think it was teams that have worked us out, and Register Brist didn't know how to change it, or Register Brist didn't have the players who could change it? Now, I've mentioned on a couple of pods that in the first 20 games, we lost 4 games, and in the 15 games after that, we've lost 8. So, I mean, we've lost twice as many games in 3/4 of the games. So it's a clear shift in start the season in the first. I mean, there are reasons for that, but people are asking that question and saying, you know, did Register Brist not have the answers, or did he not have the tools? And
Possibly a bit of both. I think, Jacques had been out for a little while. Didn't help, because we obviously went on a little run then when, him being injured and stuff like that kind of cost us. But what I've noticed over the last few weeks now, teams seem to be taking corners and putting it right onto our 6-yard box, because I think they've looked at Robin Roof since he's come back from his injury, hasn't been coming as assuredly as what he was before he got injured. And I think it started with Liverpool, when Liverpool beat us, when it was literally like just across Van Dijk, gets a header. But a lot of teams are now doing that. A lot of teams are looking at that thinking, well, they might be a little bit vulnerable to set players. And there's another one on Sunday, Saturday, wasn't it, when they scored from that, it was pretty much carbon copy what we've been conceding lately. So maybe, I think, yeah, I think we've also played some difficult games and everything like that. I think obviously the defeat at home to Fulham was disappointing. The defeat to Brighton at home was disappointing, because I thought we deserved a lot more of that game. But I think we've also come up against some good, obviously the Forest game last week. You look what Forest done since then, beat Villa and they absolutely destroyed Chelsea with half a team out yesterday. They were on a good run, so the performance just by us was disappointing, but they've obviously improved. And I think, maybe some teams have found us out, but that's for me, that's maybe thinking at the end of the season, I'm going to look back and everything like that. But for now, as Andrew just said, and the lad who asked the first question, I think a lot has been missed with what happened on Saturday. That the fact that we are now mathematically safe, and the fact that it's taken, we're safe in the first week of May. I think everyone had us written off by February, didn't they? So I think in the whole, when you look at it in the season as a whole, I'll look at it as a very positive season. I'm not one of these thinking, well, we may have missed out on European football and all that palaver, because I wasn't expecting in the first place. But I think there's a lot to take for next season, because I don't think we'll get as good as a start. It'll all depend on fixtures, won't it? But if we get a start where we're playing, the big guns early doors, we're going to have to be very, very good to begin with. But obviously as well, they're going to change some players around, and they're going to bring some players in. We're going to have some money again from surviving so well and everything like that. So I can see it being different, but there's certainly a lot to work on. Especially with the second half, with how easy we've allowed teams to score against us, because that has changed since the start of the season. We were keeping a lot of clean sheets, weren't we? And now we're not. So that probably needs looking at, but I'm still quite happy.
Yeah, but don't peak too soon, and because we've got some questions on next season, so we'll keep that talk for later on in the pod. Because on a similar theme, Andrew, on that form of the second half of the season, because Jason Beattie takes a different view on it. He asks, what, if any, correlation do you make of the end of season form last season and this season tailing off towards the end? And why do you think this seems to have repeated despite new personnel? Now, I'm going from memory here, but I'm fairly certain somebody who told us about Regis Labris at Lorient also said there was a similar pattern there as well. And it's funny because you do go, like Ant's just talked about potential reasons and why that might have happened. But it is funny that, the 2 seasons he's been here and the fact it happened at Lorient, people are going to ask if something keeps happening, people are going to ask, is that a pattern?
Yeah, they will spot that kind of that history and think, is there more to it? I think last season's drop off and this season's are very different because it was very clear that it was a case of we have mathematically qualified for the playoffs. The games in between literally have no bearing on anything. And there were games where, I don't want to single out individuals, but Joe Anderson, for example, got minutes. He was clearly not somebody Labris had a long...
Just that name made Ant giggle. Sorry about that. I needed to point that out.
I'm not even meaning to have a dig at the lad, but he was certainly a player who Labris didn't see any particular future for. And it was a case of, look, we've just got to turn 11 lads out on the pitch and get these games over and done with. So I don't really think last season is... I don't think it's necessarily fair to look too much into that. It was clearly, to me anyway, a case of the playoffs are the be-all and end-all, and what happens before then are virtually dead rubber games, This season, I think it's slightly different. I think it's a combination of a lot of little factors. And again, it's important to note that even after this drop-off, we're still performing better than a lot of people expected of us. I've just looked at the form table there for the last 5 games very quickly. We're 13th in that. So it's not as if we've dropped off to the point where we're now useless and no hope, as we're still picking up points. The bottom 4 in this form table that I'm looking at have picked up as many games in their last 5 outings put together than we have just by ourselves. So, yeah, we were excellent at the start of the season, and now we're only pretty good, if you know what I mean. It's still acceptable in the wider scheme of things, and I just think it's little odd bits of things. Ant mentioned Xhaka was injured. It wasn't just the fact that Xhaka was injured. When he came back, he didn't look 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So, players...
You could argue he's still at 80 or 90%, couldn't you?
Very possibly, yeah. Very possibly, Chris. So, it's things like that. It's players are coming towards the end of a long, hard season. A couple of injuries are still lingering. Little things like that. The goal we conceded against Wolves was disappointing, and defence has looked a little bit vulnerable of late. But it's not a million miles off where it needs to be at, I don't think. We could still conceivably pick up more points. I'm not panicking just yet. Just on something that cropped up in my head and I forgot to mention it, just if I may, very quickly going back to the refereeing and the complaining about Dan Ballard and his hair pull thing. Hair pulling seems to be the main talking point now. Just like previously it was pulling of shirts. That's gone now. Brian Broby was running down the wing trying to get away from his man in the first half and was clearly being pulled back by a shirt pull. That's now being ignored, which to me, I think is more of a foul than the Ballard one. But we're having all these conversations about hair pulls and all of that. Mark my words, this time next season, it'll be something as equally pathetic, and hair pulls will have been forgotten about. So that was just something that cropped up. As for Sunderland and the drop off this season, I don't think it's one obvious thing. I don't think it's necessarily a cause for concern. It's just, it is what it is after a long, tough season, I would say.
Yeah, well, I thought you were starting off a new chant there when you said Brian Brobby running down the wing. I thought that was a chant I hadn't really heard yet. But yeah, just on the remaining 3 games, and because we've had a question from Rob Law, and he says, based on the season so far, would you rather see us play with expansive football, or do you think we'll be conservative for the remaining 3 games?
You know what? I think that's a really good question, because I said this yesterday, actually, and I'd like to see us proper have a go at United and Chelsea at home. 2 big teams coming to us at the Stadium of Light, I know like our season's pretty much done and dusted, but we can still, we've got an outside opportunity at Europe, haven't we? But having these 2 sides coming, who, we've always had some really good games against United and Chelsea at the Stadium of Light. So I'd like to see us have a pop at them. I really would. We've got the wingers coming back, Chris, and we've got, I think, Jocelyn Tarbee was on the bench, wasn't he? And I think Nilsson and Bertrand Traore are like a week or so away. So I would like to see us go back to 2 natural wingers and have a real pop at, especially at United, because United showed on Sunday, even though they got the 3 points, defensively they are vulnerable. They still are vulnerable. They conceded 2 very silly goals, especially the second one. Yeah, I know the scoring goals are fun and everything like that, and the silly 5 winning games in a row is rearing its ugly head again because they've won 3. So certain someone might have to get his hair cut. No, we're on about hair again. But I'd love to see us. I think that's, like I say, it's a really good part. I'd love to see us just throw the shackles off. Just going, we're going to take it to these 2. And then even at Everton away as well, because we've already beat them down there. We beat them in the FA Cup, and yes, it was on penalty, but we played really, really well and probably deserved to win over 90. So I'd be, just let's just have a pop. Let's have a go. What have we got to lose? Absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? So let's enjoy ourselves for the last 3 games. Yeah, whether Register is capable of doing that is another matter. But I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And just on the hair front, you really need teams just full of Steve Agnews, don't you? And then problem solved, really, isn't it? But just on this league finish, before we take a break, Andrew, Michael Bowers has sent a question in saying, purely on a financial level, how much is it worth finishing, say, top half? Because each place you finish in the Premier League is worth a few extra million, if I'm right. Now, I did have a quick look, actually, and there is a predicted kind of amount that you get that you can find on the internet somewhere. Of course, you can find anything there, of course. Top of the table, Arsenal apparently predicted to get 53.1 million if they finish top, and the difference between them and Man City would get 50.4, so just under 3 million is the difference. Now, if we go down to what we're predicted to get at the moment, that's 23.8 million, which if the table finished as it is tomorrow, Newcastle will be below us on 21.2 million. So that's 2.6 million difference. Now, let's say we go up to 8th. So we're currently on 23.8 million. If we went up to 8th, where Brighton are, that's 34.5 million. So that's a good, 11 million-ish. Go up to 6th, 39.8 million. So that's almost 40 million versus the almost 24 million that we're on. So you can see the jumps in positions. You're talking about 2.5, 3 million per position. I'm not sure, Andrew, whether the difference between finishing 12th and 8th is 12th and 11th. Sorry, is huge. But let's say we finished 8th, 6th, 7th, or 8th. You're talking best part of 17 million or something like that potentially, which is a Xhaka or someone like that. So, although nobody really at the club this is not going to be number one on their priority, it's a nice little something that if we do win the last 3 games and finish as high as possible, then, it's maybe another player in the summer, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, those amounts are quite significant if you can jump, a few places. Uh, unless, of course, some of the players are on bonuses, and if they finish in the top half, we end up spending all that money in bonus pay.
Well, that was like Reedy's team, wasn't it? Because they were a massive bonus, weren't they?
Yeah, some of them were, and you could tell as well. Um, uh, it's not just the finance. I think the higher up we finish in the table, the better the mood will be over the summer, the more attractive we are to potential transfer incomings over the summer. We suddenly look a lot better to a player if we finish ninth than if we finished 13th or whatever. It would be lovely to get a top half finish because we've not had many of those in Sunderland's history since the Second World War. It would be lovely. I still think Europe is a possibility. I know it's becoming a bit of a long shot now, but I still think it's potentially there. So there's a lot to be said about finishing higher up the table. And then you have the money on top of that, which could be significant. Like you say, it could very easily give us the room to sign another player, or instead of shopping around for players that cost 20 million, for argument's sake, we can suddenly go and maybe bring in a player who would be 30 million. I don't know. Also, this might sound like I'm being unnecessarily arsey, but if we earn a few more million, wouldn't it be nice to think the club then wouldn't have to squeeze local charities and local season ticket holders for a couple of £100 here and there? That would be canny nice, wouldn't it?
Don't pick too soon, Andrew.
Oh, is that another Sorry.
Which I think is a perfect opportunity for us to take a quick break. So we'll be back very soon.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot make your email response time faster. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you find space for your 3 desk drinks. Why do you have 3? And while we can't help you find the perfect volume for your presentation video, LinkedIn can help you find the perfect audience for your business. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
And welcome back to Haway the podcast. And we're just trying to get through all these questions. And I was aiming for about twice as many questions to get through in that first half. So we're going to have to try and rattle through to get everyone's question in. But I'll put a couple of these together for you, Ant, because they're on the same topic. And the first one, first part of that, we've got one from SAFC Fans React. So thank you very much for the question, gents. Hope you're all good. It's about Geertruida. And they ask, we seem to be back to that game played earlier in the season called Where's Geertruida? Have you guys got any ideas? And that links into a question from Elliot, who also asks about Geertruida. He says, is it make or break for Geertruida? As we both know, parties have to be in agreement for us to trigger the option. But if he doesn't start on Saturday with Ballard out, I don't think we will buy him. And I think it's a really strange one, Ant, because obviously, he started the season. Whenever he came in, I thought he's a player. You could just see he's a good player and never did anything wrong. You don't know what happened in January. The boat seemed to be rocked well and truly with his links to Liverpool. You don't know how he's reacted to that behind the scenes. But it feels like it's going to be one of them in years to come that we're going to be going, that was a strange one, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I think every time he's been on the pitch, he's been good. I've had absolutely no problems with him at all. Last time we seen him, really good game against Newcastle. A really strong performance. And it is a strange one. I think, just on my opinion, I don't think he's staying. Either he doesn't want to, or Reg just, for some reason, Reg just doesn't fancy him. And it is strange, like I say, because he is, like I say, when you said now, he's a good player. I'd say quickly, SCFC Fans React, where is he? He's on the bench. Like, just to get a quick answer all the way. But
but he seems to be the last option, doesn't he?
Yeah. Like, And the other lad who said if he doesn't start on Saturday, I don't see him starting on Saturday instead of Ballard. I think they'll just move Mukiele into centre half and play Trey. I think they'll bring one of the wingers in. I just can't see him starting on Saturday. I really, if he'd have started before now, you know what I mean? He'd have kept his place after when we beat Newcastle if it was going to be a run of games because he did absolutely nothing wrong. So it is a strange one, like you say, because obviously Luke's been in a couple of times, and Luke's done okay, and I know he had a power game against Villa, and obviously he's missed out. But the fact that Geertruida just hasn't, I don't think he's played a minute since Newcastle. It is baffling, but I think it's one of them ones where I think probably in 2 or 3 years' time where he is playing for a good side, and I'm thinking we had him, we didn't play him. But it's a strange one, mate. Because like I say, I do like him.
Yeah, he's going to go in the same bucket as Jerry Harrison and all those others who played under Peter Reid who never really turned out. We didn't know why. The Jan Erikssons of the world. He's going to go in. He's going to go in with it. Maybe. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Another couple linked to that, Andrew. Get your say on it because Ryan Evans says with Ballard done for the season, now the smart move would be to put either Mukiele at centre back and put either Hume or Geertruida at right back. But why do I get the feeling he will put O'Nien in at centre back? Nothing against O'Nien, but he shouldn't be starting. Also, is Angulo going to be fit? Well, I'm sure we'll hear that in the press conference. And linked to that again, Steve Richards says, spelling my Twitter address wrong can't stop me asking the question. Apologies if that's us, by the way. I'm an old man and don't really know how to use any of that, so I'll apologise on that front if that's us. He says, I thought Trey Hume struggled with his midfield role last game. Time for Geertruida and keep Nordy at right back. He also asks, should we play 2 wingers? So there's calls out with Ballard out, Andrew, to bring Geertruida in, but like we've just been saying, it seems like he's the last possible option that Lebris will turn to.
Exactly. We'd all be shocked if he ends up getting a start against Manchester United, unless we learn of injuries closer to the game. But at this point in time, it would come as a surprise. I mean, mad that we're going from Jerry Harrison to international Champions League experienced Lucharel Geertruida in the same breath.
But you remember Jerry Harrison, you see, for all the wrong reasons, you see.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's a fair analogy. It's just, you said they'll be in the same bracket. I mean, that is some conversation as they're all just sat there in Sunderland.
I mean, I've lifted Jerry Harrison up there, by the way, putting him in with Geertruida.
Yeah.
That's the big mistake there.
I think it's perhaps just a case of a decision is being made on him and the club aren't going to be looking to turn that deal permanent, or it's come from the other side and Geertruida's representatives have said, look, just so you know, we don't want to make this into a longer term arrangement. So Lebris has thought, well, if we can play somebody else, we will. There's no suggestion of him having a bad attitude, and he was brilliant against Newcastle. Apologies if this is me being unreasonable, but he was the victim of racial abuse in that game as well.
Yeah.
Maybe he's being shook up by that. Maybe there's things behind the scenes we don't know. But on the face of it, I think it's just a simple case of thanks very much for your time, no hard feelings, but we're all going to go our separate ways in the summer, so we might as well put in a player who is expected to be part of the longer term plan. And yeah, if Mukiele needs to move into the middle and Hume comes in at right back, I don't think that's a bad little option. O'Nien may well come into the team. Lebris does seem to like him still. So there's a couple of options there, and it's nothing personal with Geertruida, I don't think. It's just one of those bizarre ones that, like you say, in the years to come, we'll look back on and think, thought he might have had a longer future with us.
Yeah. The really strange thing is for me that if Luke O'Nien decides I've got a couple of seasons playing first team football in the Championship or whatever, which he might say, look, my journey with Sunderland, I've got into the Premier League, I've played for Sunderland in the Premier League, I've played there, I've got there, but now I need to play week in, week out. And if we try and go to the next level next season, then looking at today's market, a deal for Geertruida worth 18.5 million quid, it seems like a steal. So if O'Nien leaves and we need a new centre half, we'll probably end up paying more for someone in the market. But anyway, it just seems like a strange one. Sorry, go on,
Do
Andrew.
you think he'd want to come though, Chris? That's the
Well,
thing.
not
He's
now.
barely been used, yeah.
Exactly, not now. But if we just bought him last summer for 18.5 million, I think in today's market, I think that's a bargain for a Dutch international. And like I said, Luke O'Nien might well decide on his own terms. Look, and Championship clubs will take him, like they'll snap him up. So if he wants to play a full season in the Championship for someone, you would say fair play to him. But like I said, we might end up paying 30 million for someone who's the same standard as Geertruida.
Well, Chris, though, you might have hit the nail on the head. Maybe O'Nien has said, yeah, I want to become a regular somewhere else. So maybe Sunderland don't want to spend 18 million on a player who's a bit of a utility option. Maybe they would rather replace the two of them with a 30 million or whatever the amount is. Maybe they think, well, both of those have kind of been bit part centre-backs, bit part full-backs. We don't need that. We want a designated centre-back. Also, just very quickly on Luke O'Nien, I read somewhere that Sunderland next season will be eligible to enter their under-21s in the Football League trophy. I wouldn't be surprised if Luke O'Nien did stay on, if he ended up taking one of those roles where he's kind of a mentor and plays in those games alongside the kids. If he wants to stay on and he's happy to be a peripheral figure rather than a regular starter.
Yeah, I think Paul McShane did that for Man United.
There's been a few, hasn't there?
Yeah, but
didn't he? Tom Hiddleston, Tom Huddleston, Tom Hiddleston. Tom Huddleston.
Both of them, I think.
But Jay Stephen as well for Liverpool. I think he already just retired last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only pod where Jerry Harrison and A-list actors get name checked all in the same question.
To be fair, Andrew, I'm due at getting a name wrong, aren't I? You know what I mean? Like all season.
It's not a dig at you. It's just it's not a dig. It's just evidence of how mental Sunderland is.
If the listeners are playing Haway the podcast bingo, they just need Andy Melville for the full house now. But moving on to players who might be likely to be leaving in the summer, and Paul Rackstraw asks about Dennis Cirkin, and he says, should we not be trying to tie down Dennis Cirkin? How much would it actually cost to replace him in it? And in his cameo role on Saturday, he looked more than comfortable, and he is still so young. We talked about this a little bit with James Copley on the Sunday supplement as well, and James thought Dennis Cirkin would be leaving, and it looks that way, doesn't it, Anne?
It does, and it's a shame. It's a shame because had he been able just to stay injury free, you're looking at a lad who would be like, up there because he's a class player. And yes, as he said on Sunday and Saturday, he did really, really well. I think he's done well every game he's played. City at home, he was outstanding. So it is a shame. I think he probably, from what the little rumours and tidbits are that he wants to go back down to London, which you're not going to stand in his way if he wants to go home. That's fair enough. But like I say, I think the thing with Cirkin is I'm in the kind of camp of I would have given him a couple of year contract, but it's what happens if say he misses 6 months again next season, and really they're going to bring in a player who's got a little bit better injury record than what Dennis Cirkin's got. But listen, a lad who's came up with us, he was a League One signing, wasn't he, Dennis Cirkin? So a lad who's come all the way up with us. Like I said, not really put a foot wrong. But it's just, I think it is looking as if his time's come to an end. So I think he's probably going to be away. And just looking at the ones who are on the freeze, I think the only one they're going to keep Simon Moore, and the only reason for that is maybe going this under-23 thing, and Simon Moore being the under-23 goalkeeper. Because I think like he's doing a little bit of coaching as well, isn't he, at the minute, Simon Moore? So, and I think the players all love him. So, I think he might stay around in a coaching capacity or a little bit of a like a help out for him in the 23s. But everyone else I think's off. But shame,
Yeah.
though. Uncertain. It is a shame.
Yeah. You get the feeling they're going to try and sign someone at the next level to fight it out with Ronaldo next season, but we'll see in the summer. Moving on, Andrew, Ben Cluj asks, is it time to start Isidore? Brobbey only one goal since match week 23. His hold-up play is great, but Isidore, with Talby supporting and Lafay feeding, gives us the chance to play it fast on the break. We look dangerous when playing this way. And it does seem like Isidore at the moment comes in when there's a scenario that suits him or Regis Labris thinks suits him. The other thing with Brian Brobbey in recent games, I don't know about you, Andrew, but I felt sometimes that the tussling with a centre-half almost distracts from his game sometimes. I don't know how you feel about that, Andrew.
It's certainly a huge part of his game because as a striker, it's not that often that he actually has an effort on goal.
Mm.
I think the stat was one goal in however, I can't remember which match day.
Well, it might be against the Max from memory.
Yeah, it must have been. But it's not as if he's missed a boatload of chances in that period. He's I don't know if this makes sense. He's a player who plays up front as opposed to being a striker. He doesn't get a load of goals. I don't know, though, if bringing Isidore in would necessarily work unless you looked to change the whole... you change personnel around him as well and change the tactics. When Isidore came on at Wolves, it was part of like a triple substitution. I just think it's a case of Brobbey is there to do that physical work and, like you say, to occupy the defenders, and either with a view to wearing them out, or if other players are firing fully, to feed off the knockdowns and to run on beyond him. I don't know if Isidore does that. Isidore is a striker who is best when he's facing goal, whereas Broby's best when he's got his back to goal and he's working the opposition. So Isidore looked lively when he came on against Wolves. So I'm not opposed to him having a few more minutes, but I think that you'd have to do more with the team to accommodate them.
Just very quickly, Andrew, on Isidore, just very quickly, are you surprised that we maybe haven't seen Isidore in wide positions? Because Labris originally brought him in to play wide, didn't he?
Well, both him and Mayenda, who we're told can do a job on the wing, and it's not a lot we've seen from Isidore. And the one time I remember him doing it was in the Cup against Huddersfield, and he looked like he could have had something there. So don't know why that's not being explored.
Yeah, interesting one. One on the fans, Ant, and I might bring you both on this. You both might have a say on this, because Lad of Light asks a really interesting question. He said, should you have to scan your ticket on the way out if you leave the stadium early? He says there's 15,000 people on the waiting list and there's too many leaving before the final whistle. It's an interesting one, Ant.
That's going to open up a whole new can of worms, not buying it.
That's why I said it's an interesting one.
They can't implement that, can they? It's just not going to happen. As much as I kind of like it.
They definitely could.
I think it's a no, I don't think so. But, I mean, it's kind of people staying against the will then. No, I don't think they'll be able to do it.
According to your records, you've never left the stadium.
Well, yeah. Like we saw, it'd be quite good, like to rack up your minutes, like when they give you, or you're not getting a season ticket because you left like a total combine 190 minutes early in the MC's season. But, that would cause World War III. That would. Uh, great question, by the way.
Yeah.
But
So that's a yes, then they should bring it in.
just for the laughs.
Can you imagine the mags if Sunderland had longer queues to get out of the ground than to get in? Would be absolutely tortured for that. Like,
I mean, Andrew, I don't know if you've got any thoughts about it.
I mean, in general, I don't understand the early leavers, notwithstanding people with genuine issues. But yeah, again, can you see some old boy, Doddery, who has to leave early because he's not good in crushes, having to like plead with the stewards to let him out before he gets trampled on? It's not good. And yeah, I don't necessarily agree with early leavers. I don't think it benefits the club. I can't see I don't see why so many people choose to do it, but it's a little bit. Oh, it's a little bit 1984 type of.
Absolutely, yeah.
But an interesting one.
Yeah, people pay their money. They can leave whenever they want. They paid their money.
That's it. Whether you agree with it or not,
exactly. You go in to watch a crap movie that you think's good, but turns out to be absolutely crap. It's your choice. You don't get penalised for not watching it all. You know what I mean? So it's an entertainment industry at the end of the day. So if you're not entertained, you can within your rights to go home. But moving on to another one for fans, Andrew, I'll put two together for you because they're on a similar theme. Michael Conroy asks, is the club moving in a different direction right now, moving into a more Premier League model off the field? If so, what does this mean for the regulars? And like I said, on a similar theme, Tenchi Lad says, is the club's broader holistic growth strategy a positive? Fears of it losing its roots and identity for me are misplaced, as the community will remain the heartbeat of the club, and global reach fuels progress and competitiveness, which we all want. We shouldn't fear change. So just the fact, Andrew, I think that we got these two questions that are very similar, that people are feeling it. People realise and recognise that the club are trying to move in that direction, trying to become a global entity, a global company almost. That we don't like to call us a company, but at the end of the day, that's the people at the top look at us that way, and they try to structure us that way. And you look at the top clubs and they're run in certain ways and they do certain things. And you look at Manchester United at the moment, they're having big trouble with fans. And I'm not sure there's probably a club out there who hasn't had trouble with trying to have that balance between making lots of money from new fans and keeping old fans who've been there for following the club with season tickets for 30, 40, 50 years. So it's a tough one, isn't it, Andrew?
It is. It's a really tricky situation, and this is completely off the hoof here, and you might say, what are you doing? But this is probably worth a pod in its own over the summer.
You're right.
There you go. I've given you an extra job for the summer, Chris. You thought you had it. You thought you were going to have some time off, but it is important.
You what? Kidding, aren't you?
I know. But Michael Conroy and Tenchi Lad, I believe, are regular contributors to these question and answer sessions. So yeah, that just proves to me that genuine long-term fans are aware that this has been bubbling under for a couple of weeks and seems to be getting more of a concern. It's really important we consider what the impact is on. I think Michael used the term regulars, and I think Tenchi Lad used the word community, because those are really important factors at a club like Sunderland.
Well, are those not interchangeable? Are those not the same thing?
To a point. And it's, I don't know how this is going to make me sound, but at some clubs, you perhaps accept that you're never going to be able to afford tickets and you're going to be milked within an inch of your life. But the trade-off for that is you're winning trophies. Sunderland are different in that results are important to us. Of course they are. But it's it's important when you get involved in Sunderland in the first place. It's not for the glory. It's because it's part of
I wish someone
your.
had told us that earlier.
I know. It's part of your history. It's like, oh well, my granddad went, or me dad went, and going to a match to me might be, oh well, it's memories of loved ones or related. There's all of these things intertwined with it, and you've got to protect that, because I think that makes it special. And I can fully understand from the club's point of view, things need to be done to enable us to compete. I fully understand. I'm not a business expert, so I'm maybe a bit too soft, and I see things with rose-tinted spectacles, and maybe the world isn't actually how I want to see it. But there might be somebody in the director's box who thinks, well, hang on, if Sunderland lose, the fans boot off, and a load of them nash off early. Although we've got a plan for that. We're now gonna make them scan their tickets in, and they have to pay money to leave. Yet on the other hand, we try and compete, and we try and become financially stronger, and they boot off again because they don't like how they're being treated. So some people might say, well, however, which way do you want it? But for me, James Copley spoke about this very well on the pod you did with James and Martin. People are being charged admin fees to move seats or whatever. Really, in the grand scheme of it, do those little few quid here and there, whilst might be a big chunk to the person on the street taking the money out of their wallet, but really compared to some of the money in football now, is it going to make that much of a difference? Like, for example, Arthur Masuaku cost us what, a couple of million?
Yeah.
It's mad to think we're happy to just spend a couple of million on a player who that we then let leave on loan in the January. I know that's a slightly straw man argument, and there's reasons why you build a squad in the way you do. But it does seem that in some areas, the football is awash with money, and then in other areas, genuine people and charities that have a connection to Sunderland are getting squeezed tight. So there does need to be a line. I think Sunderland are in danger of crossing that line, and I can well understand why people are worried. I'm worried because if this all goes badly wrong, we could lose this connection to the club, which I think is a massive part of why we're supporters in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that fee that James Copley was talking about, that 20 quid fee, charged someone for actually making a move for a seat they didn't actually want to do.
Yeah.
So it was all a bit bizarre. But anyway, like you said, I think that does it deserve a pod on its own, especially at the end of this season. But moving on, and I think actually a lot of people from now are looking towards next season, actually. And of course, we're going to be talking loads about that. But I'm going to put a couple together for you. And we're getting to that stage where half of people's brains are looking towards the summer. And we've got one from Roy of the Rokers. He asks, how much change are we expecting this summer? He says, on the playing front, likely double figures could leave, whilst we could argue 6 new signings to add competition or depth to the squad. And on a similar theme of change that we might or might not be expecting in the summer, Rob Ellison-Davidson, so Roy the Rokers pointed it towards players. Rob Ellison-Davidson says, how is it even a thing that some people want to move on from Register Briss to push on next season, given what he's achieved in 2 seasons? Given we finished 16th in the championship when he arrived, progress is not linear, and another similar campaign next season would be positive, in my opinion. So, talking about the level of change, and Roy the Rokers is asking on the playing front, and Rob Ellison-Davidson saying, why are people talking about the potential change in the dugout with Register Briss? So, how much change are you expecting this summer at the club?
I think we'll be surprised. I do. I think you're obviously going towards, the Robin Roos story won't go away, will it? Him go to Chelsea, but mind if he's watching Chelsea at the minute, he's going to go, nah, I fancy it here, like, to be totally honest with you. But because they're in real trouble. But I think we'll obviously see some players move on and everything that we mentioned before. The Dennis Certains of this world and everything like that. I'd imagine like Bertrand Traore. I don't think they'll extend that year because I think he's been out for too long. Again, injuries. I don't think they'll extend that. I think one of the three strikers will go, whether it's Mayenda out on loan or East out on permanent. Because that's another one who's gone missing, hasn't he? Mayenda hasn't been seen for a while. So I think one of that will happen. Apart from a few big, huge offers come in, I think we'll probably keep. You're looking at your Ballards, your Aldrettis, your Mucky Hillies, I think will stay. I think Siddiqui Diarra, Jack will stay. Brian Brobby, even though that rumour from Bayern Munich came, I still think he'll stay. But what I would like us to sign, I want us to get another striker in. I think we're missing that one who's going to guarantee you goals. Like your 10 or 15 goals, like picking up the pieces and things like that. I would like a striker like that. I think we'll probably go for another right back, or another full. We'll definitely go left back one because I need someone to help up with Ronaldo. So I see 6 to Geertruida Cirkin say. I'm not sure. I think maybe 4 or 5. So yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. I think don't ask who, because I keep on getting these questions asked and I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah, you see, the only one who I'd really go if West Ham get relegated, I would literally, even though I don't think it would happen, I would love us to go for Bowen or Somerville, one of them two. I would love us to go for one of them. But that would be, that my big signing next year would be, if you said to me now, who would you like? It would be if West Ham go down, Jared Bowen. Because I think he'd be brilliant here. Whether or not it happens because he's married into London and he's so, I don't think it'll happen. But I would love to see us try that. But as far as the Briss goes, I'm in the Briss must stay camp. I really am. But we've Andrew's just spoke about, what these owners are what they're wanting and what they're wanting off the pitch and everything like that. We heard Florent Gasolfi a few weeks ago say he wants to win the league here. They've got ambitions at this club, and we've seen it with players, we've seen it with other stuff and everything like that. If they think that there's someone there who can do a better job, they will not hesitate at doing it. And I think Kirill probably learned his lesson from when he wanted to get rid of Mowbray after Mowbray didn't get us up in the playoffs, and he wanted, I can never remember his name, but Tim was at Porto now. He wanted to bring him in, and he thought due to fan backlash, he didn't, and it obviously we lost a year of it. So I don't think if they think someone else will do a better job, then they'll do it. But who that person is, I don't know, because I had this conversation a couple of days ago, and it was mentioned, do you not think they've sold the project to Ariola at Bournemouth? I was like, wait, yeah, but that's like, that's pie in the sky talk, isn't it? You know what I mean? And I think he's obviously going to bigger and better things. I'm not saying we're like, bigger, better and Bournemouth. Bournemouth had a really, really good season. But infrastructure-wise, we've got so much ahead of us than what Bournemouth have got. You're looking thinking, yeah, I don't think you'll come, like I say, but it's just a conversation. But I would like, though, if they are going to stick with Register Press, I would like them to bring a number 2 in. Not just because we had that with Vulcano, didn't we? And Vulcano left, and we see we've gone a little bit backwards defensively since he's been there. And he was pretty much focused on defence and stuff like that. So I would like him to bring in an experienced number 2. I think that would make sense if he's to stay next season. But listen, like, it's Sunderland Football Club, mate. Nothing surprises me about this club anymore. So yeah, I wouldn't shock us at all if it does happen. I don't want it to happen. As I said, I prefer him a number 2 coming in and just giving him a hand and all that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, in terms of experienced number 2s, unfortunately, Paul Bracewell's joined Jermaine Defoe at Woking, so
yes,
he's busy for a 4th return at the club. But that answers Joe Lewins' question.
Brian Little doing these.
Yeah. because Joe Lewin's asked if we see the club further evolve in the backroom staff, coaches, plus a number of new recruits. So that answers yours, I think, because I'm expecting if Register stays, another number 2 or at least another coach in there. I'm going to put 3 together for you, Andrew, because they're very, very similar. Connor Brumley says about next season, what are your expectations for next season? Is it as simple as survive or should we aim for more? Neil Critchley, do you think we will struggle or get in the top half or even a European place next season? Chris Day says, what do we do next season? And he also says, do we adopt what Forest have done for the last 6 weeks? Because they have been truly unbelievable. Now, just to throw in that Forest thing, I mean, all these questions are saying, how will we do next season, essentially, Andrew? But just on that last point about Nottingham Forest, I remember speaking to Kieran Maguire, and last season he was talking to the Brighton owner, who was very data-driven, and he's got all of the data in front of him about everything, and he's Kieran Maguire, I think, said he's one of the cleverest blokes he knows. So I'm gonna take Kieran Maguire's word on that because he's a clever bloke. So he said that, and last season he said to Kieran Maguire, he said, "You watch Nottingham Forest next season. They won't be half as good," because he was looking at Nottingham Forest's data. Now, famously this season, as reported all over the shop, our data says we shouldn't be doing quite as well as we are. Whether that's Johnny's favourite XG or whether that's XA or whatever stat Johnny makes up next. But all the underlying data says we maybe shouldn't be doing quite as well, Andrew. So, bringing that into the equation, because Christy asks about Nottingham Forest, because I think they've changed their way of playing. But next season, is it the eternal, being the optimist, we say, well, the target should be to better what we've done this season, or is it more complicated than that?
It's complicated and it's easier said than done, but I'm definitely a glass half full type of character when it comes to Sunderland. I'm not in me day-to-day life, but when it comes to Sunderland, I am. And I think we can grow and build on what we've done this season. Forest, I remember that podcast, and I remember that little bit of insight onto Forest and how last season was an outlier for them and maybe a false position, and they've kind of this season they've reverted to type. I don't think Forest have helped themselves by the fact they're on to, is it their 4th manager now?
From memory, yeah.
Yeah. So whereas Forest haven't been able to build on that particularly good season of theirs and use it as a jumping off point, I would like to think that Sunderland are a bit more stable, and that kind of goes into that earlier question about, do we stick with Labris or do we bring somebody in? I don't see why we can't look at what we've achieved. And we've all said that in the second half of the season, we've not got as many points as we would have liked based on how we've done in the first season. And we've all got a few reasons as to why that is. So I think with a few minor tweaks here or there, like Ant says, maybe a shake up in terms of the support staff at the club might just add a fresh angle. I think next season we can be confident of being as equally good, if not better. But we'll not know for definite until we know if we are in Europe next season or not. Europe doesn't have to be the millstone around the neck a lot of clubs make it out to be. You have to be smart about recovery and diet and all that type of thing. And, do the club bring a few of those? What was it Martin Bain got rid of? Those daft ice baths.
Plant pots?
Plant pots. No, man. What were they? Was it cryo chambers?
Cryo chambers, yeah.
I didn't want to say cryo chambers in case that was off Futurama and I'd got them confused. but there's ways you can manage the load. I think you can alter training programs. You can maybe use some of these European games if we make it as an opportunity for the the players like Mayenda, who we've mentioned earlier. But that said, it does impact your resources. So it would have a bearing on what we would expect in next year. I think our recruitment and all of that side of things is just so good that Sunderland should be looking to improve on what we've done. And if we're greedy, a nice little cup run would be a bonus if we could manage that. So basically, yeah, improve your cup form, qualify for Europe, and finish higher in the league. I'm not asking for much, am I?
No, it's in the bag. And just sticking with you, Andrew, very, very quickly, because Rob Law says, based on our current crop of youngins, who do you think will be in the first team next after Riggy? And I know you keep your eye in with some of the young lads at the club. So just wondering if you've got a couple of names.
I actually don't know if anybody's ready yet, if truth be told. There's some really good players and they're really doing very well, but most of our better players in the under-21s at the moment are under-18s who've been brought on. So to then push them into the first team setup might be a bridge too far for them. A little bit worried about Finn Geragusen, because he's done really well for us this season. He's a big, strong lad, and he looks as if he could have a career in the game at first team level. But I think he's not signed a contract for next season. I think he's out of contract, and there's whispers he might move on. So I'd like to see that sorted. And as for the first team, I think we're maybe a season away before we see any of our academy prospects coming through, in all honesty.
Yeah. Wonder if Matty Young might be the next one actually pushing for a first team.
That's a fair shout. Again, it depends what happens with Roofs and that.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in the summer. Right, last one, gentlemen, and I'm going to put this one to both of you because I think it's a brilliant one, and we'll try and be quick with it. Paul Brown, he asks, and I think this was from a previous one that I kept back. He asked, are there any players that we were constantly linked with but didn't sign that you used to read up and follow the Team Talk links and hope that we signed? Two of mine were Stefan Selekovic and Tony Bedo. But Ant, I'll put that one to you very quickly.
I watched a little bit of, is it John Lakimi, the centre half who we nearly signed?
Right.
Watched a bit of him. Every time I've watched him, he's been car crash, to be honest. Looks like a big unit, wins our headers, but he cannot play football. Like, the ball at his feet is not great. Like, so maybe we've missed out on that one. And I can't remember the name of the winger who we had, and then he failed a medical, didn't he? But apparently he's done very well this season, so maybe that's something to look at again. But his name escapes us. I'm sure Andrew will know because he's the font of all knowledge. Or you, Chris?
Are there any players from way back in the day we were linked with who you saw, on the old Team Talk on teletext or anything like that? We were linked with who you?
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Right. Yeah. Well, I remember on Team Talk when we got promoted under Peter Reid in that summer of '96. I remember Team Talk ran headlines that we were linked with Roberto Baggio, Ariel Ortega, and who was the other one? Oh, Karol Poborski. During that summer, I think when he did that scoop during Euro '96, we were linked with him. And I know quite often on this week we have a laugh about the Martin Lings and the John Frains of the world. But Andrew, you got any for Paul Brown's question?
I like this question. This would be good in a pub to have this.
I can see your cogs turning straight away. That.
Aye, exactly. That lad Ant was referring to, was that Loriente? No.
Yeah. Look, I might have been. Yeah.
Armand.
Yeah. Rings a bell.
It might have been because apparently
he's
doing
scored
really
loads
well.
in Serie B, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be murder for this back in the day. Players, I would forever in school just be writing out what my starting 11 would be and what the team would look like if we signed some of the players we were linked with.
Oh yeah, for one summer I had Brad Fadel in goal for something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the team. if Kelvin was on this pod, he would say that Sunderland were only ever 2 players away from being a good team, and I would be forever signing players on Sunderland's behalf. I don't know if we were actually linked with him or I just liked the look of him, but there was a goalkeeper at Burnley called Marlon Beresford.
Beresford, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I used to always like to. I mean, what a pathetic childhood I had. I used to like to think of Sunderland signing him. Oh, yeah. This is my day gone now. I'm just going to be thinking of random Football League players from the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Weren't we linked with Ariel Ortega on something like Teletext
Yeah,
or something?
that's what I've just said.
Yeah.
Oh, did you? Oh,
yeah. It was in the list of the 3. It was Ortega, Roberto Baggio, and Karol Poborski. That's the ones I remember from the summer.
Weren't we always linked with Jan Koller? It was like every season wasn't it? We were linked with Jan Koller, and then when he retired, everyone celebrated because we were never going to sign him.
And of course, it was the Robbie Keane. Yeah,
Robbie Keane.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Mike. I think this summer weren't we linked? Didn't Andy on the website keep a running total of how many players we were linked with? And we were linked with about 100 or something.
I think it was Bomber who did it.
Was it?
Summer.
Oh,
yeah.
Apologies, Bomber. But yeah, good luck keeping a track of all of those players over the next couple of seasons.
Like I said, I don't know if we were linked, but one player who I thought we might have been linked with every now and again, who I always wanted us to sign, especially when he got on in years, Mickey Hazard.
Yes. They
always wanted us to send every so often when he was in his mid-30s, we kept getting linked with him.
Well, Chris, I used to think that if you were born in Sunderland, it was the law that you had to play for Sunderland. So
there was
Gary Porter.
I was just about to say Gary Porter. Yeah, that was the other one. Midfielder for Watford. Yeah. And the amount of times I bought Marlon Beresford on Championship Manager 2001, 2002. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, we'll have to stop there, or else we'll just keep on going with this because this is a never. And I'm going to bring that one up again in future pods when we get into the summer because that's a brilliant question. So thank you, Paul Brown. We also got another one from Norman Luther, which I'm going to hold back because he sent us a brilliant picture from the Sunderland Echo talking about his favourite players from the 70s, and he asked us a brilliant question that potentially we might turn into a pod or at least raise on a future one. So thank you for that, Norman, and we'll definitely come back to that one. But we need to stop for today because, like I said, when it comes to Team Talk and Sunderland Links, we can go on forever. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. Absolutely brilliant. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have loads more on the Roker Report website. And I think Gav's going to be along with a news roundup tomorrow on Haway the podcast before we start building up to the game against Manchester United. So look out for. Oh, Andrews wants to step in.
I think the lead story is we've been linked with Marlon Beresford. Well, that's going to be the lead story on the news pod.
And just quickly, gents, very very quickly, actually towards the end, because news is that you've reported, Ant, the update jingle went because latest news. It's like Sky Sports News. We've appealed Dan Ballard's red card.
Yeah, got him an appeal. I don't think we'll win it, like, because they'll just go back on. I think it was the Cheryl Martinez for Lissandro Martinez in Terry who played for Manchester United. He got a red card for which was never a hairpull either, and they lost the appeal. So I don't think we'll win it, but I'm glad that they have appealed it. I've got to be honest, because the way it sounded when Regis was talking at full time was just like, wait, it's the rules. It's that we have to respect it and this, that, and the other. But I am glad because it's just a joke. It's just an absolute joke. But we'll see what happens. Football, me love with football might be rekindled if we actually, if the FA see sense and actually overturn that. But hope will very much spring eternal.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's a big chance for them to make a distinction.
Yes.
Between somebody pulling someone's hair and someone grappling someone with long hair and it getting caught up. So I think it's a good opportunity to make a distinction. If they don't, then they basically say every time someone touches hair, then it's an automatic red card. And I just think that they're sending themselves down the wrong path. But anyway, we need to definitely finish now. So again, gents, really appreciate it. Look out for everything on the Local Report website and Haway the podcast. But from us, it's bye for now.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.